Mic check 1 2 1 2. Before we get started today, I gotta make sure my mic is on point. For the people who know and the people that's been paying attention, I got a new mic not too long ago, and I've only recorded one episode of Full Time Out with this new microphone. So I gotta make sure we on point. It looks like we are. Welcome back to Full Time Out, your favorite sports podcast hosted by your boy AJ2K. If you've been paying attention the last 3 weeks, last 2 weeks, so around that time, I've been a little MIA. I've been working. I've been taking trips and vacations. This, as most people know, is kind of like my off season. But the season, football season, is just about upon us. We're a little less than 2 weeks away. So, I got to get into some football today. AJ2K, A as in apple, J as in juice, A as in alphabet, E as in eat, the number 2, the letter K as in kite. If you've been paying attention on my social media platforms, the at which I just mentioned and spelled it out for you guys, I am always active there. I've been posting content nonstop, just quick reactions to everything that's been happening in the sports world. So if you're looking for me, that is where you can find me. Threads, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. You type that in, you will find me there. But I am back in the full swing of things for Full Time Out because, again, the season is upon us. It is right here. I've been patiently waiting for this. If you've been paying attention to those social media platforms, you kind of know where today's show is going. We got to start off, in the NFL, of course, with some news that happened with a division rival. For the people that are watching on YouTube, of course, I got the Birds, Lincoln Financial Field in the background. If you've been paying attention, y'all know what it is, man. We fly, goose fly all day around here. Is what we do. We soar above all obstacles, trials, and tribulations. But nothing brings me more happiness than talking about those Dallas Cowboys when there's a lot going on with them. Yeah. Nothing brings me more satisfaction than starting Full Time Out with talking about just a little Dallas Cowboy controversy. So let's jump right into it, man. I don't have a lot of time to waste. Y'all know how I do. I like to get right to the points, man. Again, we talking some football today. For all you fantasy football players out there, we're going to talk fantasy football sleepers. My NFL draft or my fantasy football draft is coming up later this week. I usually try to wait until, closer to the season, kind of almost last minute, because I can't stand injuries. I want everybody to know, what players are playing, what players aren't, who's available, who's not, who's going to get time, who's not. I want you to see how the team's looking like or what the players looking like in training camp, what they not looking like in training camp, because at the end of the day, I don't want no excuses. When it's time, it's time. If you draft your player, I didn't know he was hurt. Hey, you had all offseason to do your research on these players before you drafted them. So, but again, I'm going to talk a little fantasy football. I got to also talk about Noah Lyles' comments towards the NBA. And then if I have time at the end, I keep on saying this. Because I do want to touch on this. I want to touch on the landscape of boxing from a broad standpoint. I have yet to talk about Spence and Crawford. I've yet to talk about some of the other big fights that are coming up. So if I have time, I want to get to that. But without further ado, let's roll the clip, man. Trey Lance was traded. Trey Lance was traded to no other team other than, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Jerry Jones was asked, hey, did you have a conversation with Dak Prescott? He had some interesting things to say. They asked Dak Prescott, hey, how you feel about this? Did you know it was coming? He has some interesting things to say about that. Without further ado, let's roll the clip so y'all can see for the people who are watching on YouTube, and y'all can hear for the people who are listening over the radio. Shout out to the block105.com, the Block 105 radio. Shout out to y'all. For the people who are listening over the radio, I want y'all to hear this clip.
If Dak ends up that this was coming down?
No. We didn't tell anybody until we did it. Period. There was nobody that knew it. We told Mike after we'd done it. But my point is, we just wanted to get it done.
I can't say that I necessarily expected it, no. I understand that that's business. I understand that they're probably on a timeline. They need to get something done. And as I said, he felt like that strengthened this team. To be honest with you, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. He's been in this league 8 years, been on this team. It's hard to say that I was surprised, to be honest with you.
Oh boy. First off, let me start here. let me start here. Let's land here for the time being. The 49ers, I believe, is a very, very well-ran organization. They always find themselves competing. They always find themselves, NFC Championship game, Super Bowl, always in the thick of things within their division, if not winning their division, especially nowadays with Seattle kind of falling off a bit, but then getting back on the horse this past season, and every other team in the division really not being worth mentioning. You know what I mean? And so they always find themselves in the hunt, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who the receivers are. And major shout out to Kyle Shanahan, who again always has a system in place that is going to help his quarterback succeed. Is always going to have a system in place that's going to help his offense succeed. Shout out to the defensive coordinator out there, and the defense out there who is they always ball out. They always got, I think for the last 2-3 years, they've had one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best defense in the league. Last year, they were the best defense in football. And so you got to give shout out and kudos there, man. They missed on this, though. They missed on this. They missed on it wide. They shipped out some of everything. I don't want to go down the details of everything they shipped off to move up to, I think they took him at number 3 overall a couple years ago, because everybody knows all the details to that, right? So don't want to go into all those details. We know they gave up a haul to move up to grab Trey Lance, who was, we all knew, a project. We all knew that Trey Lance hadn't had a bunch of snaps coming into the NFL, hadn't had a bunch of experience compared to other quarterbacks in his class coming into the NFL. So you kind of knew what type of risk you were taking. And Trey Lance got there and hasn't looked great in the time that we've seen him. And in the time that we haven't seen him, he's been hurt. So you've had other quarterbacks come in, Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson. They held on to Jimmy G for a bit to try to bridge their way over to this Trey Lance project, or bridge their way over to this Trey Lance quarterback who they think is going to be the future. And it has not worked. And in the meantime, Brock Purdy, luckily, Brock Purdy has emerged on the scene and looks like he's the future for the 49ers. So shout out to them, because they went out there, they got Brock Purdy. They've tooled up Brock Purdy. It looks like he's going to come into this season healthy. And I expect Brock Purdy to be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. I liked what I saw out of him this past year. NFL teams have tape on him now. And so it'll be interesting to see how teams game plan to stop him and slow him down. But I think it's more so, Kyle Shanahan than Brock Purdy's individual talent. And I think Brock Purdy's individual talent kind of helps pushes the team, to the next level. So I don't really know how teams can really game plan to slow them down offensively. So I expect Brock Purdy to be pretty much what he was this past season down the stretch. I expect him to be pretty good. Their schedule isn't extremely tough, so I expect them to be solid. The Trey Lance situation is interesting, though, because this is not what anybody expected. They wanted to hold on to Trey Lance until they seen Trey Lance again this year in practice and realized he really might not be the guy. He really might not be the guy. So we need a team. This is my take, people. This is my take. I know a lot of people not going to agree with this, and a lot of people not going to feel this, but it's how AJ feels. It's my stance. It's my stance. The 49ers said, we've seen enough. We've seen enough. We've seen enough out of Brock Purdy. They went and got Sam Darnold. We've seen enough out of Sam Darnold. More importantly, we've seen enough out of Trey Lance. And in the time that we've seen Trey Lance this year in practice, combined with the other years that we've seen Trey Lance on this roster for the San Francisco 49ers, Trey Lance has not been it. He's inaccurate. He's missing reads. He's missing people left and right, overthrow, underthrow. He's having a hard time learning the system, whatever the case may be, whether it be 2 of those things, 3 of those things, all of those things, or 1 of those things, whatever it was bad enough to the point where they said, forget it. We'll basically take whatever we can get for him. We need a team, a sucker. That's what we need. We need a sucker to go out here and give us something for this guy. We're going to come out and say, we probably going to trade him. But then to keep his stock decent, right, We're going to say, we might hang on to him. We might hang on to Trey Lance. We want him to be here. Just so that teams can still look and say, hey, Trey Lance, hey, the 49ers may still want to hold on to him. There's some future there, you know. There's some promise there, I meant to say. And there's a future there potentially. Just so a team can throw something out here. And the moment they throw something out here that we like remotely, we gonna jump at it. Because I can assure you they gave up much more than a 4th round pick to move up to number 3 overall to draft him a few years ago. We all know the details behind that. And lo and behold, who is the sucker to go out there and make a trade for Trey Lance? A guy that is not proven yet. A guy that we don't know. We don't know can be a starter in the NFL. We don't even know if he could be a backup in the NFL because Sam Darnold, a guy that nobody respectfully respects as a starter in the league, some don't respect as a backup, beat out Trey Lance for the backup spot in San Francisco. Who is the team that's willing to take that chance on Trey Lance and see what he's got? The Dallas Cowboys. You can't make it up, people. You cannot make this stuff up, people. You cannot make this stuff up, people. So then you hear, now to the Dallas Cowboy side, you hear Jerry Jones very, very, confidently say, hey, we didn't ask. Simple as that. We didn't talk to Dak. By the way, shout out to First Take. That's where I got the clips from. So shout out to them. Shout out to ESPN. That's where I got the clips from. We don't want no copyright issues. Again, shout out and credit to ESPN First Take for the clips in regards to Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones and the Dallas media, who I'm sure interviewed them. Of course, Jerry Jones is like, hey, we didn't ask Dak. This is something that we wanted to get done. We got Cooper Rush still in the building. But hey, do we believe Cooper Rush could be the future of this franchise? Do we think Cooper Rush should come in and fill in and win some games? Of course, he can come in, fill in, and win a couple games here and there. But do we think or want him to be the future of the Dallas Cowboys? I don't really see it. Do we believe Dak Prescott, who is scheduled to have, a $60 million cap hit not this season, I believe the following season. Do we believe Dak Prescott is the guy for the future? And that's where the controversy comes in. Because you don't make a move for a young project the likes of Trey Lance, a guy who was drafted 3rd overall in his draft class. Just a few years ago, this wasn't a decade ago. This wasn't 15 years ago. This wasn't even 5 years ago at this point. This was a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago. Man ain't even got out of his rookie contract yet. You don't make this type of move if you have confidence in your starting quarterback to be the future, not only for this year, but for the next 4 or 5 seasons to come. You don't. And as much as people like to crap on a 4th round draft pick, you can get talent in the 4th round if you know how to draft. You can get talent in the 4th round if you know how to draft. So the Dallas Cowboys don't take this chance if they got immense faith in Dak Prescott to go out here and do what needs to be done. And then you see all these people coming out and saying they should have said something to Dak. You see Dak noticeably a little frustrated at the fact that he wasn't called, he wasn't forewarned that this situation was going to come up and this situation was going to happen. And my question is why? Why? First off, let's talk about Dak Prescott for a second before I get to Jerry Jones' stance. Dak Prescott, in my opinion, is known for being one of the best regular season quarterbacks I've ever seen. Ever. Dak Prescott puts up numbers. Dak Prescott wins games. Back-to-back seasons with 12 wins. Been in the playoffs multiple times, won a division multiple times, never repeated, but won a division multiple times. Has a winning record. I think like 24 and 4, some crazy number that the Cowboy fans be throwing out there as far as his record versus the NFC East. They try to use that as the case to say he runs the NFC East. Okay, that's y'all stance. That's y'all stance. I'm not here to debate that today. Right. Dak Prescott in the regular season is a winner, a baller, a stat sheet stuffer. But in the playoffs, it's not that. It's not that. And Jerry Jones has made it clear over the last few years, I want to get back to the Super Bowl. This is the same Jerry Jones that was winning Super Bowls with Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and the playmaker Michael Irvin. That's what he wants. That's what he's accustomed to. That's what he desires at this point in his life. And in his career as an NFL owner, he does not care about playoff appearances. He don't care about divisional round appearances. He cares about, I'm sure, at least NFC Championship berth, at least Super Bowl berth, but most importantly, above all, a Super Bowl championship. That's what he wants. That's what he cares about. And so Dak Prescott shouldn't look at this. First off, you shouldn't be threatened by Trey Lance anyway, because Trey Lance, again, couldn't beat out Sam Darnold. If you're threatened by Trey Lance at this point in your career, there are deeper issues here. There are deeper issues here if you feel threatened by Trey Lance. And if you feel threatened by Trey Lance, I can understand why the Dallas Cowboys will make a move to go get Trey Lance. That's just me. I could understand at that point. Because I guarantee you, if Trey Lance ends up in Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts ain't going to blink. Okay, we got Trey Lance. Because we know what the future is in Philadelphia. And Jalen Hurts has that confidence and knows that his game will continue to ascend. He will continue to get better and continuously prove that he's the guy at the quarterback position. He's the guy at the quarterback position. And so, in Dak Prescott's case, again, you shouldn't be worried about Trey Lance at all. You shouldn't be. What you should be worried about is the fact that you got Brandon Cooks now. What you should be worried about is the fact that you got Stephon Gilmore now. What you should be worried about is the fact that y'all are loaded. Offensive line, running backs. I like Deuce Vaughn. Gonna talk about him in a second as one of my sleepers for fantasy football. You still got Tony Pollard. You got CeeDee Lamb. Offensive line. Defensive line is crazy. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence on the outside. Y'all drafted a young guy, Mox, I believe his name is, who Cowboy fans think is going to be great. I don't know. We'll see. Special teams is good. Y'all got a nice special teams, man. Stacked all across the board. When you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they have no holes. That's what you should be worried about. Because now the pressure is at its all-time high for Dak Prescott to go out here and ball. That's what it's really about. It's at an all-time high for him to go out here and ball. Because what's the excuse if you don't make at least the NFC Championship this year? What will be the excuse? If everybody's healthy for the most part, because we know injuries happen in the NFL, but if the core is healthy, if he's healthy and the core around him is healthy, in the NFC, that is not stacked. It is not loaded as we stand today. We got a couple teams at the top. NFC is very top heavy. We got the Eagles, we got the Niners, and we got the Cowboys. So in the NFC that is not stacked, that is not loaded, you should be able to at least get to the NFC Championship game. Some people expect you to win a division. I don't. But some people do, because we've never seen a back-to-back, NFC champion in I don't know how many 20-something odd years. There is no excuse for him to go out here and not perform. No excuse for him to not go out here and make it at least to an NFC Championship game. So if you're Dak, you shouldn't be offended. In my opinion, you shouldn't be offended, because it's not like he went out there and grabbed Aaron Rodgers, or he went out there and grabbed a proven guy that we know is going to be a starter this year, a guy that is really going to add some type of quarterback controversy or start some type of quarterback controversy. Trey Lance shouldn't be that guy unless you're playing rough and unless they decide to skip past Cooper Rush, which I don't anticipate. So you shouldn't be concerned from that standpoint. But from Jerry Jones' standpoint, yeah, we putting just a little fire under you. We letting you know that at the very least with this Trey Lance trade, we are looking at other options at the quarterback position if you do not perform the way we think you should perform this year with the talent we've put around you. Because this is not the first year the Dallas Cowboys have been loaded. And this is my issue with Dallas Cowboy fans. They act as if they act as if Dak Prescott has not had weapons to throw the football to, weapons to hand the ball off to, defenses that show out, defenses that create turnovers against stops. You had players. You had guys. You had a Dez Bryant. You had a Jason Witten. You had a prime Ezekiel Elliott. You got Tony Pollard now. You got CeeDee Lamb. You had Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, one of the best offensive lines in football for probably since he's been in the league. If we being honest, they've been at the very least a top, I'd say 7 offensive line, because I know they had some injuries a couple years ago, even injuries this past year, which is why they had to go and get, Jason Peters out of retirement, right? But the first couple years in the league, Dak Prescott had the best offensive line in the game, right? Then you look at the defensive side of the ball, and yes, the earlier part of his career, that defense used to blow games, and they did facilitate in blowing some playoff games. But these last 2 playoff games have fallen solely on the shoulders of Dak Prescott. Why? Because that defense has shown out. Shown out. You got somebody on the defense that's getting 10 plus sacks and 10 plus interceptions in 2021. You got a defense last year that's what, top 5 in sacks, top 5 in turnovers, or creating turnovers. Elite defense that showed up in both playoff games. Elite defense that showed up in both playoff games these past 2 years. And who did those L's fall on? Dak Prescott. This ain't me trolling. This is just me speaking the facts. It fell on Dak Prescott. It fell on Dak Prescott. And that's the honest truth, Cowboy fans. That's the honest truth. Take the Eagle fandom out of this conversation. It fell on him, and y'all know it fell on him. The interceptions against the 49ers this past playoffs cost him because that defense played lights out. Then you got the 2021 playoff game where you do a QB draw with like 13 seconds left and you can't even snap the ball to, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. It ain't all on Dak, but some of it is on Dak. And I think that Jerry Jones making this move doesn't necessarily say, yeah, Trey Lance is going to come in and replace Dak Prescott. But I think what it does say is if you don't perform this year, we are looking at other options. Our eyes are open as far as the quarterback market is concerned. Then he came out and said, hey, wish we would have got Jalen Hurts. And I know that was a shot. I just know that hurt the pride of a lot of Cowboy fans. Because how many Cowboy fans been throwing shade at Jalen Hurts and his ascension and him being a running back and all this other stuff that they say. But then your own owner come out and say, we wish we had him. We wish we took him. And I think you got Trey Lance because he has a similar playing style as Jalen Hurts. That's just my take. You see a guy that can run, that can throw. You hope the mental is there. Hey, we tool him up for the next 2 years. Train him up. Maybe he could be Jalen Hurts 2.0. Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. I'm saying all this to say, look, overall, do I think it was a bad move for the Dallas Cowboys to do this? No. Do I think it was a bad decision to not tell Dak Prescott they were doing this? No, because they shouldn't have to. Dak Prescott has not done enough or had enough playoff success to warrant that type of treatment. That's just the facts. He has not done enough to warrant that type of treatment. He just hasn't. He has not. And so I'm not mad at Jerry Jones for saying, look, bro, I done gave you every weapon there is to give you. I done spent all this money. I done paid all your skill players. I'm going to pay CeeDee Lamb pretty soon. If Brandon Cooks is good this upcoming season, I'm probably going to have to extend him at some point in the offseason or maybe even mid-season. We got to eventually re-sign Micah Parsons. We just signed Diggs, right? And you on the hook for $60 million next year as a cap hit. I done everything I can do to support you with enough talent to go out here and get it done. I done spent every dollar I got, not literally, because we know Jerry got that bag, but I'm just saying, from a football standpoint, I done spent it all. At some point, you got to get it done, or I got to keep my eyes open. And I need to make you just a little uncomfortable. I agree. I agree with him if that's his stance. I agree with him. Maybe I need to make you a little uncomfortable. to make you understand the urgency of the situation. We got another team in our division that just went to the Super Bowl. They've been to 2 Super Bowls in 5-6 years. And we haven't gotten out of the divisional round. And a legitimate argument could be made. We got more talent than the talent that there is in Philadelphia. We sure do talk like it. We sure do walk around and act like it. So why ain't we getting it done? Can't blame Jerry Jones at all for his stance on how he feels about this situation. And I don't blame him for taking a chance at Trey Lance. I think it's funny that the one team that goes out there and takes that shot at Trey Lance, who I'm not confident is that. I'm not confident he is him. But I find it funny that the one team that takes the chance is the Dallas Cowboys. As an Eagles fan, I find that amusing. But looking at it, big picture, can't blame Jerry Jones. And Dak Prescott, look, you want to silence the critics? You know what to do. Go out there and ball. Regular season, go out there and ball. Postseason, beat Philadelphia for the division. Get your team to an NFC Championship game or to a Super Bowl, and I guarantee you won't have to hear anything anymore. But miss another 5 games. Lead your team, lead the NFL in interceptions again. Make it to the playoffs and not perform well, or heck, miss the playoffs. And this may be either his last or his second to last year in Dallas. Just my stance, just my take. Can't be mad at Jerry. Dak shouldn't be mad either. This should, hey, get it done, Dak. You got enough to get it done. I would say I'm rooting for you, but I'm not. You got enough to get it done, bro. Get it done. Because I'm telling you right now, them Philadelphia Eagles, man, they got Jerry nervous. That's a big part of this conversation. They got Jerry a little nervous, man. We just seen a division rival go to the Super Bowl. Hey, that's just me. Sticking with football. So, like I said, fantasy football is here, right? And, I want to give out some tips this year. So, full disclosure, I've never won a fantasy football championship. Never. I have been to 2 championships. I've been to 2 fantasy football championships. I have lost both championships. Both of them I've lost. And they have been heartbreaking. This past year I lost. But I drafted Jalen Hurts. I drafted AJ Brown. I got Justin Jefferson. I mean, my team was loaded. I forget who I had at the running back position, but the team was loaded. In my other league, I had Justin Jefferson. I had Devontae Adams. That league was only like eight, somewhere around 8 players, I want to say. So I was able to get stars like, again, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams. I think I had Saquon Barkley. I had Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I think I had AJ on that team too, if I'm not mistaken. AJ Brown. Figure who my tight end was, but loaded. And the thing that has killed me in both championships I've been in, because I was in that championship. Actually, I take that back. I've been in 3 championships and never won. Because I was in 2 championships last year and another championship a couple years ago and lost. The thing that kills me every time is those sleepers. I always draft really well. I always do a really good job of finessing and figuring out a way. Can't get the word out, but figuring out a way to get stars on my team that I know will perform. But then when the postseason rolls around for fantasy football, and some of those stars like Jalen Hurts, like a AJ Brown, like a Justin Jefferson, and those guys don't play as many minutes because they're winding down and getting the body right for the postseason, I don't have enough sleeper players that come in and get the job done. This past season in one of my leagues, man, I couldn't bench Jalen Hurts. I just couldn't. I don't know if it was pride. I don't know if it was fandom. I don't know if it was, hey, you got me here. But I knew I should have benched him. And he didn't play the greatest game against the New York Giants. Same thing with AJ Brown. I didn't bench Justin Jefferson. And we all know how the last game of the season went for Justin Jefferson this past year. It didn't necessarily go well. Well, second to last game of the season. Didn't really go well. He had a really tough time with, Jair Alexander. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't even play the whole game. So that hurt me as well. And I lost. So this year, I want to throw some sleepers out there, not only for myself, but for y'all. I got some people that's in my fantasy league this year that I know watched full timeout. They pay close attention. And so y'all probably gonna steal some of these sleepers from me, but I can't take them all, right? So I'm willing to share this year. I'm willing to share because I believe no matter what, I have the keys to victory. I know where I'm screwing up, and I know how I can win this year. But for the sake of today's show and for the sake of it being football season, I want to, unload some sleepers that I have coming into this football season. So let's start off with quarterbacks. Got a couple sleepers at the quarterback position. My first sleeper, Jordan Love. Jordan Love. If my guy KC is listening to this, he's like, what? Jordan Love? The guy I've been telling you about should have been a starter for the last couple years, XYZ, because back when I had the Bridge the Gap platform, we would go at it. He wanted the Packers to get rid of Aaron Rodgers in favor of Jordan Love. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers we talking about. You just want to get rid of. But I see it now, boy. Jordan Love looks good. I thought he looked good this past season against Philadelphia, where when Aaron Rodgers got hurt and he had to come in and, play a couple downs to finish out that game, Philadelphia really had to close that game out. We really had to leave our guys out there and close that game out. They managed to put up 33 points to the Eagles 40. But, hey, Jordan Love came out there and, scored a touchdown right away. I think it was the second or third pass, threw the ball to Christian Watson, and bam, touchdown right out the gate. And so I like what I see out of him. You could tell that he's been playing under Aaron Rodgers. He's been learning under Aaron Rodgers when it comes to his reads, when it comes to his playing style, when it comes to, how he runs, when he runs, even how he throws the football. I don't remember him having that like sidearm kind of like slingshot in college. That's straight out of Aaron Rodgers' playbook right there. That's straight Aaron Rodgers one-on-one. I mean, he's throwing the ball almost identical to Aaron Rodgers. And I just think that with this defense and the young talent that they have, it being a fresh start for pretty much everybody, and people kind of sleeping on the Green Bay Packers this year, people not having a ton of film on Jordan Love like that, I think he's in a really good position to come out here and ball out. He's a dual threat. He could run. He could throw very effectively. I think he's a pretty accurate quarterback. Nice arm. Got Matt LaFleur coaching him. Matt LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And I think, again, in this system that he's playing in with his young talent at the receiver position, that he can grow with. It's different, when Aaron Rodgers is there and you got young receivers that you want to come up with, young receivers that aren't necessarily known as stars yet, like Garrett Wilson is in New York. It's hard to make that adjustment for a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I'm used to having, Greg Jennings and, Donald Driver at one point and Jordy Nelson at another point and Devontae Adams. I'm used to having stars and that ball out right away. I have that chemistry with right away. It was hard for him to get that, that chemistry off this past season with the young receivers that they brought in. But a guy like Jordan Love coming into this system, young quarterback with other young receivers, a full offseason. You also seen them this past season too, as a backup to Aaron Rodgers, and also threw some passes to them in training camp and practice, and then got a little playing time against Philadelphia as well. You have an opportunity to grow with this young core in a way that Aaron Rodgers grew with Jordy and grew with some of the other receivers, even Devontae Adams, in a way that he grew with his receivers as well. And so I think Jordan Love has the potential to have a really special season. That's one team that, again, I bring up the Lions. I brought up the Bears. I still think the Bears win the division. But after further thought, I'm not sleep on the Green Bay Packers, man. I'm not sleep. Again, they still got defense out there. They still got playmakers on that side of the ball. They still got a solid running back tandem, and they're well coached. I think Jordan Love is going to have a solid season. Obviously you don't reach on Jordan Love. You don't pick him over Hurts and Mahomes and the greatest quarterbacks in the league. But if you're the type of fantasy football player that likes to wait into the later rounds to draft quarterbacks, Jordan Love might be the guy. I feel the same way about a guy like Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett coming into his second season as an NFL pro with Mike Tomlin coaching is going to be special this upcoming season. You got Pickens, who looks, Pickens is, I'm not about to go as far as Ryan Clark went and say that he's more talented than Justin Jefferson. I ain't going to do all of that. But the boy got skill. That's undeniable. He looks like he's poised to take a step this season. And if he takes a step, it'll be because Kenny Pickett also took a step. And so I look at him in this offense, you got solid running back play. You got a decent offensive line. The team is well coached. You're in a very competitive division. Another team that people are sleeping on, similar to the Green Bay Packers, are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they have a decent roster this year that can compete. Kenny Pickett, also another guy that can be a dual threat, can run for some first downs, run for some touchdowns, got a big arm, and is going to be targeting Pickett nonstop, trying to tell y'all. Or Pickens, I'm sorry. Nonstop. So I look at Kenny Pickett to be a guy that, again, if you're a fantasy football player that likes to draft quarterbacks late, I don't think Kenny Pickett is going to be a player that's going to be picked. I think you'll be able to get him as a player, in free agency this upcoming season, because I don't think most people are going to draft him, honestly. So I think he'll be a guy you'll be able to get off waivers, a guy you'll be able to get, in the free agency pool, right before a week where your starting quarterback has a bye week or something along those lines. He'd come in, fill in, and ball out. I think he can come in, fill in, and ball out for you when it comes to fantasy. And so I'm looking at him as well. Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson can't be no worse than what he was this past season. Now, I will say this. He did not look great in joint practices versus Philadelphia. Let me say that. He was giving that ball away like candy. He was throwing them interceptions nonstop. I think he threw 3-4 interceptions in them joint practices. So, he hasn't looked great, but it's practice. And I'm not going to sit up here and tell y'all that I believe Deshaun Watson is going to have that type of season like he did this past season. I don't see that happening again for Deshaun Watson. Now you got a full offseason. You added Elijah Moore. You still got Amari Cooper. You got Nick Chubb, right? You got a system there in place. The defense ain't half bad. You got some familiarity there in the building. So I think that Deshaun Watson is poised to take a step forward. Another dual threat guy. I know you guys are seeing a theme here. For me, when it comes to fantasy football, I'd never draft a quarterback that's not a dual threat quarterback unless I have no choice. So this year, if it ain't Jalen Hurts, it's Lamar Jackson. If it ain't Lamar, I don't know. I got to do my research. But I'm always looking for dual threat quarterbacks. Josh Allen. If it ain't him, it's Josh Allen. I'm always looking for guys that can run, that can throw, because you like the rushing touchdowns and the rushing yards just as much as you like the passing yards and the passing touchdowns. Love it. Jalen Hurts was a gold mine last year because he had, 13 rushing touchdowns, 22 passing touchdowns, a bunch of yards passing, and a bunch of yards running. Gold mine at the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson is not quite Jalen Hurts, the runner, even though he could be, but he's not quite Jalen Hurts, the runner, but he can run. He can scramble for first downs and for touchdowns. And again, I think a full offseason with the Browns now, with all the off-the-field stuff, I believe out of the question. Who knows? I don't comment on none of that because don't look good, but it is what it is. He on the field. If he's available, late rounds, I expect Deshaun Watson to have a bounce-back season. I expect him to be better. He can't be worse. And if he's a guy that can come in and fill in for a couple weeks, say, again, your starting quarterback has a bye week, or say your starting quarterback is hurt, I think Deshaun Watson can come in there and get the job done. He's another guy I'm not sure is going to be drafted. I'm not sure he's going to be drafted in a lot of fantasy leagues. So we'll see how that ends up. We'll see how that turns out. But Deshaun Watson is another guy I will keep my eyes on if I'm the type of fantasy owner that likes to wait later in the draft to get a quarterback. Now, I'm not, full disclosure. I'm not. I go for my quarterback, depending on who's there. I try to get my quarterback second round. I try to go best receiver or best running back first round, quarterback second. I try to lock my guy up right away because I don't care what nobody say. If you get the right quarterback, they're going to be one of your best players. They're going to put up receiver-like numbers, running back-like numbers every week. So that's my philosophy. I wouldn't advise waiting this late for any of these guys. But again, if you can get them as free agents, off waivers, fill in for you guys here and there, hey, I will make it happen. Running backs. Alexander Mattison out of Minnesota. And for the people who listen to Taxi Squad, the podcast that I do with ESPN, you know how high I am on Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison is a dog. I think he's a guy that's going to get well over 1,000 yards this season and around 10 touchdowns. We've seen flashes out of Alexander Mattison with Dalvin Cook in the offense or with Dalvin Cook as RB1. We've seen flashes of him come in when Dalvin Cook is hurt or when Dalvin Cook just needs time to on the bench, time to rest, Alexander Mattison has stepped in and balled out, which is why they felt so comfortable letting go of Dalvin Cook in favor of Alexander Mattison being RB1. That is a guy you should not sleep on. That's a guy who could be RB2 on your fantasy football team. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball effectively. Hasn't really seen much preseason action, but that's the guy to keep your eye on. I think he's due for a big time year. I think the Minnesota Vikings offense is going to be pass first. Teams are going to be worried about TJ Hawkinson. Teams are going to be worried about Justin Jefferson. Teams are going to be worried about Jordan Addison as well. I think that's going to leave the running game wide open for guys to catch screens, run the ball out of the backfield and, get 1,000 yards, 10 tuds. I can see it. I can definitely see it. Besides, their backup running backs are decent, but they're not guys you're going to see on the field too often. Maybe Ty Chandler you'll see on the field a little bit because he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. But Alexander Mattison is going to be the bell cow out there in Minnesota. And so if you're looking for a starting running back and you are the type of fantasy owner that likes to wait for running backs, I don't know who does that, but if you're the type of guy who likes to wait for running backs, or you want to grab a surefire starter that's going to ball out and, spell a couple running backs that you draft early on here and there, if they have off weeks, you like certain matchups, Alexander Mattison could be your guy. So that's one guy I'm looking at. If he falls to me, I might take him and I might start him. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Deuce Vaughn, Darren Sproles 2.0. I think that's a big pickup for Dallas. I think that I believe his father is one of the coaches. I'm not sure what coach he is for the Dallas Cowboys, but he's one of the coaches. And I think that background and how he plays so low to the ground, so hard to tackle, I think it's going to be pivotal for the Dallas Cowboys this year. Catch the ball out of the backfield. He's quick. He's twitchy. He's literally Darren Sproles. And when you think of Darren Sproles, he's a big play waiting to happen. Fast. I think he's going to be that guy, every now and then, 2nd and 5. Get the ball off the Deuce Vaughn. 10-yard gain. All right, we're going to bring him back in, Tony Pollard. Now we're in the red zone. Let's throw a quick little screen to catch everybody off guard. Boom, touchdown, Deuce Vaughn. He's going to be that type of player. I wouldn't be shocked to see him in a couple of return situations. Again, I know they got a good punt returner and kick returner. I'm just saying he'd be good at that as well. And I don't think that counts for fantasy, but I'm just talking football from a football standpoint. I think they're going to find a way to get the ball in that kid's hand because I think he's a playmaker. He's a playmaker. Screens, running the ball on the outside, making guys miss, difficult to tackle. I think Deuce Vaughn is going to be a guy to watch out for. I wouldn't draft him to be a starter. I draft him to be a flex here and there. I put him at the flex spot, depending on what your receivers and running backs are looking like. If you have the type of league that allows you to put tight ends in the flex, that makes things even more difficult. But he's a guy that's probably going to slide late in the draft, I believe. And he's a guy that people are going to question. People are going to look at maybe. But he's the type of guy I can see having a pretty decent season and then next year going relatively higher in the draft and it being a little bit harder to grab him. So Deuce Vaughn's a home run hitter. And I think that's a guy to look out for this year in fantasy for sure. DeAndre Swift to round out my running backs. Very similar to Deuce Vaughn. Quick, shifty, no pun intended. I think he's going to catch the ball a lot out of the backfield as well. A lot more than a guy like Alexander Mattison, who's the type of running back to catch the ball out of the backfield but run between the tackles. I think the Eagles are going to use DeAndre Swift very similar to how the Cowboys use Deuce Vaughn. He's a lot bigger, but he has more experience. His biggest issue is can he stay healthy? So I wouldn't draft him to be a starter. Plus, he's going to be splitting, reps with Kenneth Gainwell and Rashard Penny. I know a lot of people are really high on Rashard Penny. I just think that in fantasy terms, DeAndre Swift is going to be more of a home run hitter than Rashard Penny is. And anybody behind that offensive line is going to get money. I'm telling y'all right now. Now, I've been the one, even as an Eagles fan, to kind of shy away from drafting Philadelphia Eagles running backs because it's a run by committee type of thing, and Jalen Hurts takes off and runs himself, right? But when you have a running back like a DeAndre Swift, and you see what the Philadelphia Eagles did this past year with Miles Sanders, it makes it hard to pass on him if he's there late in the draft. Again, I'm not starting him. I might throw him in there as a flex here and there just to test the waters, see how he's looking. But DeAndre Swift is a guy that I definitely have my eyes out for this upcoming season as a guy who could come out and just be a home run hitter, similar to a guy like Deuce Vaughn. Kind of like, I won't say gadget guy, I won't go that far, but a guy, again, screens, catching balls out of the backfield, running routes, routing up some of these, linebackers, and getting in the end zone, more importantly, which we all know is key when it comes to fantasy football. Touchdowns is where it's at. I believe all three of these running backs are going to score touchdowns because they will touch the ball within that red zone. Excuse me. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe, will try to go away from running Jalen Hurts so much as far as 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 3rd and 3. He's gonna run, but I think they're gonna hand that ball off or pitch that ball off and run some more screens for a guy like DeAndre Swift and even a guy like Rashard Penny, but more so DeAndre Swift. I think they're gonna open up the field for him to do his thing and have a solid season for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I got my eyes out for him. And last but not least, the receivers. The receivers I'm looking at, I got 4 receivers here. Starting off with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is going to be a dog this season. Calvin Ridley is going to be a dog this season. One more time. Calvin Ridley is going to be a dog this season. We've seen what we've seen out of him in training camp. He's one of the best route runners in the game. You got Doug Peterson coaching, so you know he's going to get you the football. You got young Trevor Lawrence on the come up. He's clearly receiver 1 out there. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his receptions. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns. I wouldn't be shocked. Not saying Calvin Ridley is going to be a top 5 receiver, but I wouldn't be shocked if he finished like top 7 in touchdowns for receivers this year. I wouldn't be shocked. That's how much I believe he'll be targeted in this offense. And a guy like Trevor Lawrence throwing him the football is a risk taker. So deep ball is going to be there. Tight coverage, double team, you're still probably going to get the football. Wide receiver screens, Doug Peterson, you can count on it. So if he's there, Calvin Ridley could be a guy that you start, maybe receiver 3, maybe receiver 2. He could be a guy that you start, maybe in the flex spot. He could be a guy that you start potentially, depending on how this season goes, because I do expect the Jacksonville Jaguars to take a step this upcoming season, and I think it'll be in large part because Calvin Ridley putting in that work. Missed all of last season due to the gambling situation, and I know he was hot about that, so he coming back hot, motivated, and hungry to prove everybody wrong about him as a player and about his mindset and about where his head is. So hungry, motivated, with Doug Peterson coaching, with a solid running game, and Trevor Lawrence throwing the football, the risk taker that he is, all that to me combines for Calvin Ridley being a really good fantasy receiver this upcoming season. So I'm looking at Calvin Ridley as a guy that has a really good season for fantasy and just a really good season in general. Chris Olave, this is just for me, it's a fan favorite. I wanted the Philadelphia Eagles to draft him. It didn't happen. Chris Olave is special. Last year, the quarterback situation was not the best. Last year, the New Orleans Saints was not the best. I'm not sure it's great now with Derek Carr, but you're getting a hungry, motivated Derek Carr in a whole new system, playing with new coaches and some new receivers to throw the football to in a division that is very sweet, very suspect. And so Chris Olave is seeing guys like, Marshawn Lattimore every day in practice, which I know, again, iron sharpens iron. I think that'll make him a better receiver this upcoming season. It's a second season in the league. So, you got the first year jitters out of the way. You kind of know what to expect. You kind of know how defenses are going to tend to play you. You kind of learn their techniques and all of that. On the flip side, they do have a little bit of tape on you, but now you got a new quarterback. And so I expect Chris Olave to have a pretty good season, especially for fantasy. I expect him to be targeted a lot within the offense as well. I don't think he's going to be targeted as much as a guy like Michael Thomas is, if Michael Thomas is healthy and able to play. But with Michael Thomas's injury history being in question at all times, for the most part, you can count on Chris Olave to probably be receiver 1 out there in New Orleans. And if that's the case, one thing you can say about Derek Carr, he might not be the best quarterback, but he gets the ball to his number 1 targets. He gets the ball to his number 1 receiver or his number 1 tight end. He got the ball to Darren Waller. This past season, he made sure he got the ball to Devontae Adams. As bad as he was, Devontae still went for like 1,500 yards. As bad as he was, Darren Waller still had great seasons when he was healthy. And so I expect Chris Olave to be really good, and I expect the Saints to be decent. I think I picked them to come out of the division. I have to double check that. It's not a bold statement either way. We know how bad that division is. But I just think Chris Olave is a guy that's gonna have a good season this season for fantasy football, as well as, you know, just from regular football standpoint. Christian Watson, another guy I think is gonna ball out. We talked about Jordan Love earlier. One of his best targets, probably his number one option, is going to be Christian Watson. And again, another home run hitter. I bring up when Jordan Love stepped in there and he played, you know, in place of Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers got hurt in the game against Philadelphia. Who did that touchdown pass go to? Christian Watson. Who's their deep ball threat? Christian Watson. Who's their speedster? Christian Watson. Home run hitter. Again, in fantasy football, you want to get your home run hitters, bro. And I think Christian Watson, one of the fastest guys in the league, young guy, I think he is due for a solid year with a guy like Jordan Love. The pressure is off these young guys, man. They got no real pressure. Jordan Love got pressure to replace Aaron Rodgers, sure, but nobody is expecting him to beat Aaron Rodgers. People talking more so about the Vikings, the Bears, and the Detroit Lions, rightfully so. You're not going into this season with a bunch of pressure to be this, that, and the third, but you had a lot of pressure this past season. Those receivers did, playing alongside the two-time MVP, which is why I think you saw a lot of drop passes. And again, why the chemistry was off as well, because we talked about, you know, him coming up with these younger receivers at this point in his career. No pressure on the Green Bay Packers. And I think that helps them succeed. If, you get Christian Watson on your fantasy football team, you start him at the flex position. Depending on if a receiver gets hurt, you start him at receiver 2 maybe. And don't be shocked if he gets you a couple games where he got 20, 23 fantasy points. Don't be shocked, man. Don't be shocked. He is a home run hitter. A yards after the catch type of receiver. Tough to tackle. Hard to catch. And despite what we saw in moments last year, he's got really good hands too. So I like Christian Watson. And last but not least, to round out the receivers before I move on to my last topic. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get to boxing yet again, but it's okay, because when Canelo and Charlo fight, we gonna talk some boxing. To round out the receivers, Zay Flowers. Boy, my guy Miles, shout out to him. Big time Ravens fan. He cannot stop talking about Zay Flowers and how he looks in training camp. Zay Flowers right now is looking like one of the best young talents in training camp. I don't even know if, or in preseason too, I don't even know if he's really a sleeper at this point. I think a lot of people are kind of on to Trey Lance, on to Zay Flowers. I think a lot of people looking at Zay Flowers like, yo, if he slides to me, because he's going to get some targets. He's their speedster. He's their guy. I think he's more their route runner. Obviously, Odell is their route runner too, but I got to be honest with you, man. If I had a choice to choose to pick for fantasy football purposes between Zay Flowers this upcoming season and Odell, might choose Zay Flowers. Just saying. Might choose Zay Flowers. I mean, you see a lot of people reporting from out of, you know, Baltimore saying by the end of the year, Zay Flowers might be receiver 1 over there. And with the new offensive coordinator in Baltimore, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more than running the football. You got weapons all over the field. So you can't really key in on Zay Flowers like that, because you got to worry about Odell. You got to worry about Mark Andrews. Can't forget about Rashad Bateman either, who's coming back from injury this upcoming season. Zay Flowers, young rookie. We ain't seen him explode yet, but he could be another home run hitter type of guy. Another speedster. Another guy that can have a couple games that, you know, he has 10 receptions for 110, 120 yards. Or he got 3 receptions, but for 115 because he caught a couple bombs. He's going to be a red zone target because he can route anybody up, and he's a short guy, low to the ground. So it's going to be hard to cover for a lot of big time and a lot of bigger DBs. Zay Flowers is a guy I'm definitely looking at. If he slides to me, I'm definitely drafting. Last but not least, man, I want to wrap up today's show by talking about this. I just want to play the clip.
Most is that I have to watch the NBA Finals, and they have world champion on their head. World champion of what? The United States? Don't get me wrong. I love the U.S. at times, but that ain't the world. That is not the world. We are the world. We have almost every country out here fighting, thriving, putting on their flag to show that they are represented. There ain't no flags in the NBA.
Shout out to ESPN for that and the Olympics as well for that clip. Again, don't want no copyright issues. Shout out to y'all for that. Anybody else that want credit for it, you got it. I took it straight off Instagram, took it right off the ESPN account. Why did he use this platform? Noah Lyles, I believe his name is, how you pronounce it. Why he used this platform to say this? You just won medals. You just went out there and ran your tail off, did your thing, and you use this moment to bash NBA players because they're called world champions after they win the finals. Not to mention, I'll make this quick to end the show. I think the statements are ignorant. I think they're very ignorant. Now, I'm not silly enough to say I don't understand what he's saying. As someone in himself that is a track athlete that races against, runners from other countries, we understand all of that. We get all of that. We get what he's getting at from a literal standpoint. But if you know anything about basketball, anything about the NBA, the ultimate goal of any player from anywhere is to get to the NBA. That is the ultimate goal. You take any player, any elite player from any country that is playing overseas, and you ask him what his goal is, if you really want to take this NBA or this basketball stuff serious, what is he going to say? I want to get to the NBA. You got guys in the NBA from Greece, guys in the NBA from Australia, guys in the NBA from Africa, guys in the NBA from all over the place. The best talent resides in the NBA, which is why they call the NBA champions the world champions. And then you take it, let's talk about the Olympics. USA dominates the Olympics. If we put our best talent out there every year, we talking Bron, KD, Steph, AD, you know what I'm saying, Anthony Edwards. If we put those guys out there every year, we don't lose. We do not lose. It is rare that the U.S. ever loses even a game in the Olympics. We know this. We know this. People who watch the Olympics know this. They are the best team. They are the best team. We have the best players here in the U.S. You know what I'm saying? Playing in the NBA. And so for him to come out and say that, use this platform to say something so ignorant, I ain't like it, man. Don't use that platform to bash another professional sport. What is this? A cry for attention and a cry for what is this? A cry for attention for track athletes? We deserve more credit because we compete against the world compared to the NBA who don't compete against the world but call themselves world champions? Come on, bro. What kind of statement is that? What are you trying to say? Why? That's something he's been dying to say. You could tell. But again, the best talent resides in the NBA. If it resided anywhere else, those players from Greece and from Africa and from all these other countries would be playing elsewhere. Guys like Giannis, Luka, Embiid, the dude that was just drafted, can't remember his name, wouldn't be playing in the NBA if the best talent didn't reside in the NBA. They'd be playing somewhere else in the world, right? Right? The goal of all track athletes is to make it to the Olympics and compete in competitions like Noah Lyles just competed in. That's the goal. The goal for every basketball player is to make it to the NBA because that is the end goal. That's where you get paid. That's where you make a name for yourself. The NBA, it ain't nowhere else. These guys go through the G League and go through all these other leagues, go overseas to make it to the NBA. Senseless comment, man. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was mad disrespectful to all NBA players. And I don't know where it came from. Out of left field. Then you seen all these track athletes, man, he was preaching. What? So y'all been itching to say this for what? Y'all get y'all credit and y'all praise? What you mad because you don't get that much media, national attention? I don't listen, it is what it is. I'm in the show like that, man. Thank y'all all for tuning in to AJ2K Radio. Woo! Woo! Thank y'all for tuning in to today's episode of Full Time Out. Make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure y'all follow me at AJ2K, A as in apple, J as in juice, A as in alphabet, E as in eat, the number 2, the letter K as in kite. Shout out to the Block 105 Radio. All my content, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, it is all there at the @. I will catch y'all on the next episode of Full Time Out.